Jake's POV. Turns out Nume are fans of sushi, because both Captain Giguales and Lieutenant Datahu assumed we would be eating the fish raw, and were very surprised when I started boiling water in a pot made of sculpted wood. Since I couldn't use fire, I had to directly heat the water with magic, which caused warping in the wood and poured boiling water onto the deck, but thankfully no one was hurt. An hour later, my belly was full of wild caught boiled fish, and two Nume asking for seconds of raw fish. I did think about asking for permission to use fire magic, but on a wooden ship, it seemed to be a bad idea. Besides, most Nume start to get nervous whenever I use my purple fire, which is what I've gotten used to using in the last year. Just after fixing the sculpted wooden pot I'd made, ready for another round, a call above our heads rang out. "Pirates! Sunset side! 3 minutes away! 1 scout spotted!" Everyone flew around, calling out orders in a rush. Dozens of Nume all around began casting spells. Some of the spells turned the outer hull into a spiked mess, with hundreds of 20-centimeter long wooden stakes pointing outward. The eyes of all the crew glowed with a magnitude of colours. The only ones left with nothing to do were our squadron. "Captain Giguales, should we do something too?" 14 asked. "No. This is their ship and their fight. They know how to handle it. We would only get in their way," he said. So there we all sat, or perched, like knots in a log. I tried to look for the pirates, but saw nothing in the distance. The seconds felt like minutes, the minutes like hours, until finally the whole ship shook suddenly. "Contact below the water!" someone nearby shouted. A group of 6 Nume flew into the air and began circling the ship, then shouted back, "3 familiars! 1 DOH!" The ship's captain flew up at that time, or maybe he was already there and I simply hadn't noticed in the chaos. "Teams 1 and 3, drive off the familiars. 2 and 4, begin anti-ship spells. Team 5, give us more speed." As he was giving orders, I noticed something in the water. A fin, easily a meter long, broke through the surface. "Brace! Brace!" a voice above the ship called out. A moment later, the rest of the monster broke through the water and threw itself onto the ship, impaling its body on the spikes. It had a shark's fin on its back, but a body like a humpback whale. Rather than a head, it had something like a squid's beak, which violently bit and gnawed at the hull like it didn't even feel the dozens of spikes ripping huge chunks of its flesh off with each twist and turn of its increasingly mangled body. The impact threw me to the ground and caused the still boiling water to spill out again, this time completely overboard and right onto the snapping maw that was less than 2 meters from me. It didn't seem to care. Without warning, a bolt of lightning struck its body, causing it to seize, stopping its attack momentarily. Using that opening, I took the opportunity to put my practice to the test. "Rot!" I yelled, and the yellowed beak and grey skin of the sea monster quickly darkened. At the same time, massive chunks of the ship's hull split off and reared back like they'd suddenly come to life. They moved like tentacles. Very thick, strong and pointy tentacles, which wrapped up the beast like a constrictor snake, before squeezing it so tightly an audible crunch echoed across the ship. By the time the wooden tentacles loosened, letting the dead whale thing fall into the sea, the Nume above had already announced that the last familiar was retreating. With the battle over, the Nume all cheered, and immediately started fixing the ship back to how it was. 3 more minutes later, and you wouldn't have been able to tell there was ever a battle, except for the steam rising from the now empty pot, and the smell of rotten fish in the air. However, there was one other sign. Now in the distance, just cresting over the horizon as it fled, I could barely make out the tiny silhouette of a ship sailing away. A Nume landed next to us and spoke with the ship's captain. "Sir, the familiar and its ship are taking distance. Should we pursue?" "No, we've chased them away. That'll be enough for today. Our mission for this voyage is not to hunt pirates, but to deliver this squadron, and we cannot delay their mission," he replied. My mind wandered for a moment, like it was being guided by something else. The memories of Zachariah's battle on Dragon's Fall Bay, and how he sank the ship appeared in my mind, like I was reliving them again. Standing up again, albeit slowly as the ship was still slowly rocking back and forth, I turned to both my captain and the ship's. "I might have an idea," I suggested. "Jake," Suma said, "what if I sunk it from here? I could use my chaos magic to rot the hull." "Is such a thing possible?" The ship's captain wondered. From this distance, even for you, that seems a bit infeasible. Perhaps your long-range magic would be best. Your railgun spell would be better, Captain Kiguales said. Captains? Lieutenant Datahu, who'd been nearby, quietly listening, interrupted. There would be no harm in letting him try, and it would be a good test of his current abilities. All right, then. Just don't sink my ship. Captain Kiguales also nodded, and I thanked them. Looking out at the quickly disappearing ship, I took a moment to imagine the spell and how it would play out. Like when I first used Railgun, the picture of a long stream of mana connecting myself and the ship appeared in my mind. Then, images of the ship's wooden hull rotting away, turning to mulch and falling apart played out. The rot would start at the contact point between my mana and the ship. Any metal, as I pictured it in my mind, would rust and crumble. It would spread to Nume, touching the rot too, like a plague. And then, I cast the spell. Rot, I said simply, and felt a split second of dizziness, but decided to ignore it for now as it quickly vanished, chalking it up to either seasickness or the spell using more mana than I thought it would. There was a moment of silence before the ship's captain ordered one of the crew to go scout the outcome. That felt like quite a lot of mana being released just now. Are you okay? He asked. A bit dizzy for a second, but fine now. Jake's mana reservoir is plentiful, Suma said. But really, I could feel for our connection she was proud to say it, and I could hear a bit of smugness in her tone to boot. A minute later, the scout returned. His feathers were puffed up, and he lost almost all of his glittery sparkle. They're sinking, Captain. Are you all right, crewman? You look like you've seen the black worm ready to pluck you, the ship's captain said. What about the ship's crew? Are they setting their sails towards... They're dead, sir. Almost all of them. Oh, looks like your spell did more than sink the ship then, familiar. Good work. What of the survivors, crewman? Headed towards land, sir. Maybe Cambron or part of Taldra? That might not be good. If they are working with the Southern Union, then word of our arrival could spread. I don't think they will make it to the mainland, sir. And why is that? They did not look very healthy, like they were getting ready to fall out of the sky just from flapping their wings. By the dragons, familiar, what kind of spell did you cast? I started to say, suddenly feeling very ashamed. I knew it had to be done and why I was doing it, but still. That will be quite enough. My team needs rest, and after that battle, so must your crew. I suggest we all prepare to roost for the night, Captain Kiguales said. My mouth opened, and a few words somehow managed to stumble out. Captain, did... Get some rest, soldier, he ordered. Captain Kiguales' POV. The luminous braids hung loosely from the deck above, putting out just enough light to not strain the eyes. The ship's captain, one of his crewmen, and my lieutenant were in the ship's captain's quarters. Tell us what you saw in the sinking pirate ship, I said. I'll be the one to order my men around, Captain Kiguales. This is my ship, he said, then turned to his crewman. Tell us what you saw. A lot of dead bodies, sir, the crewman said, obviously shaken. It was bad. How so? Lieutenant Datu asked. The ship, it was falling apart, but so were they. It was like everyone had died months ago and they'd just been floating on the water, he explained, shaking his head. Their mana felt wrong too, like it had spoiled somehow. All the bodies looked like they'd been pulled apart. Some had exploded with their guts splayed out on what was left of the deck. It was awful, Captain. What about the ones that got away? The captain asked. You said they looked sickly. They looked like flying corpses. Black feathers, cold beaks, and not a single spark of life left in their bismias. Just wrong. Sick and wrong, the crewman said, his eyes tightly shut. Thank you for this, Captain. And you as well, crewman. It was enlightening, I told them. That familiar. Does it got a name? The captain asked. Sentinel. No, his master calls him Jake, I said. Sentinel. Bit guardy. Well, just do me a favor with Sentinel, Captain Kiguales. Make sure that his master does not lose control of it, at least not while it's aboard my ship. I nodded in agreement, and Datahu and I took our leave. Back on the main deck, far to the tail of the ship, where we could be alone, we had a chat. He's getting stronger, Datahu said. Indeed. That is good for us. Is it? I asked. I hope so. A whole ship and its crew in one spell? I sighed, and while I may not worship the dragons anymore, I did find myself praying inside my mind that we were right about him. Otherwise, there would not be much we could do. At least he is still ridiculously slow, Datahu said, probably making a joke, or perhaps it was an impromptu tactical analysis. He is. For now.